views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Greetings and welcome to Jamel Hardtman Unscripted, where we have conversations about things that matter with people who do. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifications bell. Tonight's guest is an entrepreneur, a mother, wife, grandmother, educator, and also a former classmate of mine. She's a fearless Black woman who, along with her husband, has created a business that many would deem risky. Through entrepreneurship, she's also on a journey and learning more about history and herself. Please join me in welcoming Rashida Godwin to the show. Greetings, Rashida.
Hi, greetings. Good evening. Thank you, Jamel.
No, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing as an entrepreneur out there. And I know it must be tiring. I mean, you're doing tours.
Yes. Yeah.
But you know what, Rashida? We've got to take some rest time. We've got to rejuvenate, no matter how much we love what we're doing. But before we get into the conversation, for those who may not know, you were born and raised in Bermuda, correct?
Yeah.
Well, speak to us a bit about what your childhood was like in Bermuda.
Oh, wow. I was born, I guess, born in Bermuda, raised. I guess you grew up in the Baccaton area, in the back there, up by like Happy Valley area there. But I had a lot of friends, what they called on the curve and stuff. And so just, my life back there and just, community, I remember even growing up, like what's going on now was unheard of, and it's sad, with a lot of young people not even being able to travel different areas and stuff. Like I couldn't imagine. We actually, as young people, we looked out for each other. I remember the block parties, Frizzle's Hill. That was one of my favorites. I actually joined, used to do in the summers back then, was called the Word Show. That was really my favorite thing, the Word Show during the summer. And just always involved in activities. Even if we went out somewhere, we always just looked out for each other. So yeah, what's going on now is really sad.
So you had a normal childhood, like myself, I like when you said the block parties, Frizzle Seal. Those were the days, right?
Yeah.
I missed them. I really, but those were the good old days. Everybody in the neighborhood got together, not just the neighborhood, but surrounding neighborhoods as well, got together and we did a thing. But you've had an interesting journey as you've grown up. As I said, we were classmates. We went to a college together. You were ahead of took one or two classes together. But you began after college. You went into the corporate sector, right? So tell us a bit about what it was that you did in the corporate sector and what did you learn from that experience?
The corporate sector was interesting. I went into it because, I had went when I used to come back in for summers. They always pretty much had like different events on, get-togethers, and so I would attend them, and they really encourage you to go into international business or banking or something like that. So I decided to get into more the international business sector. I started with a company called Everest Re as an underwriting assistant. I worked at Light World also, but then I was able to move on to be a reinsurance accountant. So I worked in that area. I also worked partnery for a while. But I was there for about 11 years, so it was a good span of time. But after a while, definitely when I got to maybe I would say the 7-year mark, I was like, do I want to continue to educate myself in this arena, or what do I want to do?
Mm.
I started to really think about where do I want to see myself. And I was always like that, like, where do I want to see myself every 5 years or so?
Mhm.
And so it was, things were changing and happening. And actually, I have a son. My son was finishing his university status, and so I was getting back to just me. So it was like being free,
Mm.
free
Well, well, what, what,
financially, anyway. So
what
yeah.
would you say? Like, I mean, obviously, not everyone gets to work in that space, the international
hmm
business sector. What were some takeaways, some things that you experienced that you were thankful for, or things that you saw that you didn't like?
Yeah, thankful for a lot. They offer a lot of opportunities. If you want to be educated, it's all yours to get as much education as you want possible. Even to move up to a degree if you want to move up. There were some, sometimes you do see some sort of glass ceilings, that certain positions were only for certain people in these companies. But on the whole, for the most part, most people were able to move up into positions. But of course, you would have to get the necessary qualifications there. For me, I just needed a change, and that just wasn't my future. I just knew that wasn't my future because when I would leave there or do other things, even weekends, I wouldn't want to have that any part of even my conversation. Even when I came home, so I knew that it was time for it was good while it lasted, but it was definitely time to move on to something else.
Indeed. And speaking of moving on, you're not an entrepreneur.
hmm
What made you decide that moving on was entrepreneurship?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Because I realized that I knew one thing I didn't. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I really did. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur from very young. But it was really just trying to put a plan together that made sense. I didn't want to. I know you can fail at it, but I really didn't want to fail at it per se. I really wanted to give it my all, and I wanted to make sure that it was somewhere that I could work and I could provide for myself and my family still. So yeah, entrepreneurship was very important to me. I really was done working for other people and literally building their wealth. And I wanted to move into something where I could build something for my own and leave something, a bit of a legacy behind myself.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
And Rashida, we hear people speaking about that often. Like they say
hmm
it, they speak it, but they don't follow through and actually do it. You're actually doing that. Uh,
Yeah.
but you chose to be an educator through entrepreneurship. You educate people about history,
hmm
in particular Black history. Why?
what's so interesting about that, right, is that I actually got dragged into that. That wasn't my plan to do that. It really wasn't. Because what I do, that was a hobby for myself. It literally was a hobby for myself. And it was something that I would only do with really, really, really close friends, family, that and just take them and just show them information. I had an uncle of mine, my uncle Philip. He actually ran the visitor service center down in St. George's before he passed away, and we would be on the phone all night just conversating about Bermuda's Black history, historical history, and we were doing a plan together to actually put a little tour together, even in St. George's and different places. But unfortunately, he passed away. But I decided to go ahead and move along with it. I had some young people in international business who I used to work with actually knew that I knew a good bit about history, and so they actually asked me to take them out on a historical tour of the Black history in Bermuda because many of them felt like they didn't know the history to the extent, especially the black history in Bermuda that they should. And many of their colleagues were asking them, counterparts, whether they were white or different ones who were even not from Bermuda, and they told me they said they felt very embarrassed that they didn't know the in history. So I took them out. We went throughout the island for like about 5 or 6 hours, just a full day, and then they were the ones who actually blasted it all over social media. and it was just a gift I somewhat gave them, and I really didn't have any intent of doing it to the extent that I did. And because I love it and it literally is it's like my baby. I love it. And so I just love to just share the information with people. And another thing is that, you know, a lot of this information we wasn't told. And so I just take it on as my way of ensuring the information shared with folks.
Indeed. And
Yeah.
what's crazy, Rashida, I was telling someone at dinner tonight about our conversation. And I said, you know what? When her husband and her first got those buses, I think it was really just for tours around Bermuda. I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure it involved the history part because I remember
Hmm.
meeting with you, and it was so that's interesting that it kind of almost fell in your lap by chance.
Yeah.
And honestly,
Hmm.
I think it's one of the greatest things that has happened for Bermuda because now you're not only teaching tourists, you're educating people throughout schools and businesses. And I had some comments of feedback, and I will say I have gotten so much great feedback, Rashida, about the work that you
Hmm.
are doing. Um, and my apologies that I only got to try it for the first time last summer. Honestly, because you and I have been talking for years, but you know from my time in Bermuda tourism that I've been one of your biggest fans and supporters before you started
Absolutely.
doing this. And I just love it. I love it because I felt cheated. I felt cheated that I didn't know a lot of the things that I'm learning from your own journey doing this. So props to you. And I'm grateful to those who continue and take their children. A friend of mine, daughter only 3 years old, and took her. And, some people may say, oh, they don't need to be hearing that. No,
Oh, wow.
no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. When is the right time to be honest with
Hmm.
you? When is the right time to start teaching them
Hmm.
things that we were never taught? So, no, again, thank you. And that leads me to my next question. Why do you believe educating people of all ages
Hmm.
about racism is so important? And have you experienced racism during your lifetime?
It's really important, especially even just sharing the tour information. And I have to always reiterate to folks that the history I share is history that should have been shared a long time ago. Even when we think of the story of Mary Prince, really that is tragic and really sad that we are just finding out recently here about Mary Prince. Mary Prince should be a subject in school. I mean, she's a subject now, but she should have been a subject in school when I was going to school and you were going to school as well too, because it's history. It's Bermuda history. Is what made Bermuda. You know, her story is the reason for emancipation, pretty much, which also eventually led into the holiday that we celebrate, which is Emancipation and Mary Prince Day, but we celebrate it as the Cop Match holiday. And so this is history. It's not. It's no separate. It shouldn't be no separate. We're going to teach that and not teach that. But of course, we knew it was a deliberate and intentional attempt on why not to teach it because it's empowering. You know, and certain segments don't want some of us to still be empowered. For us to remain disempowered is an advantage for them, and it benefits them a whole lot. In regards to experiencing racism, yeah, I mean, I have to say, because the definition of racism is not discrimination. I have experienced a bit of discrimination, you know, in different industries, and you pay attention, and you say, wow, okay. But even in terms of racism, everybody experiences racism as long as we're underneath this system that we're under, because this system is really only meant for a very privileged few to benefit, and that's what racism is. Racism is about one group being able to control the resources and the wealth only within amongst themselves, while other groups are subjugated and have no other choice but to live, you know, in certain ways.
It's interesting because I want to go back to the
Hmm.
first part about you were discussing about educating people on racism,
Hmm.
how important it is to empowering people. But you have people, black people as well, who
Hmm.
legit think that no, What just let go and stop hanging on to this or forget about reparations. Like our ancestors did all the work. All we need to do is just go out there and work hard and
Mm-hmm.
build, what are your thoughts when you heard things like that? Because for me, history
Mm-hmm.
is empowerment. Because
His.
me, I'm learning from you as to how things were, and I have a role to play in now
Mm-hmm.
creating a path for the generation behind me, right?
Absolutely. So, wow, it's so many answers for that question, you just gave me. But of course, history is not in the past. History is happening right now. In order for us to be able to even move forward better in our past, and we have to learn from the history behind us. People who came behind us, they did things, they shared us things. The answers are right there, but we have to look intently into the past to learn and understand in order to move forward. Unfortunately, if we don't look back into the past, again, you're due to repeat the same mistakes, and as well, you would never have any progress.
Mm,
Never have any progress at all.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. I don't disagree with you at
Mm-hmm.
all. That let's speak about your personal experience a bit more. So you've been teaching this, you've been learning as well as you've been educating others. But you recently spent some time in the African country of Benin. What
Mm-hmm.
was that experience like? Was it your first time to the continent? Like, what was your overall experience like?
Yeah, it was my second time to the continent. The first time I went Ghana in 2019, and then we went to Benin. Benin is known as the cradle of African spirituality. Um, I just can't even find words of what I experienced there. It was so extraordinary, amazing, just to see Black people authentically who they are, um, showing up as who they are, being unapologetic about it. And at the same time, just it's just so beautiful and serene and peaceful as well too. So when it comes to your psyche of the psychology, I definitely noticed that.
Mm,
One thing about I find about our folks over here, and even myself at times, what tense.
mm,
Everything's so intense, and
mm,
then to be in a another region of where people were just like just enjoy it, be peaceful, just enjoy life for a minute.
mm,
I mean, you could do it here, but hair has us so underneath this system of just being rigid and tense all the time because we're not sure what's going to happen next.
mm,
Where these people, they provide for themselves, they want food, they have their own food, they create their own food, they have plenty of gardens for. When I was even I could tell you a funny story when I was explaining to them. They wanted to know how we get our food over here. And I was explaining to them the concept of the grocery store. And it was such a foreign concept to them.
mm,
That's like, what do you mean everything is in this one place? Why isn't everybody just selling their goods so everybody else could have them? There's like that. You shouldn't have everything just for one person.
mm.
So it's just those conversations. So it's so funny, you know.
I haven't. I tell people I haven't been to Africa, and it's like, what do you mean you've been to South Africa? Have you been to Mauritius? Um,
Hmm.
and what I mean is I have not been to Africa like what you just explained. I've been to a more commercial or touristy or um,
Hmm.
visitor friendly kind of. Um, but you said something. I'm currently reading a book, Psychology of Money. I think that's what it's called, The Psychology of Money. And so much of what you just said is literally, just funny how I'm reading this book, and everything is really, I always say this about religion. I'll use religion.
Hmm.
Most of us believe what we do, and our faith is tied to nothing more than where we were born.
Absolutely. Yes.
Nothing more than where we were born.
Hmm.
If Bermuda has 70% of Christians,
Hmm.
I have no problem if you believe in what you believe, but the truth is,
Yeah.
if you were born in Saudi Arabia or Benin, wherever else,
Mm-hmm.
chances are you would have a different belief system.
Yes.
Why do I say that? I say that because the work that you're doing is actually putting us in a position to rethink all that we've been taught and told.
Mm-hmm.
All that we've
Absolutely.
been taught and told. From a spiritual sense, formal education.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you hope? Because it seems like more people are open to traveling to Africa now. What would you say to other Bermudians, right, who may be detached and maybe interested in history but have never gone that route, or
Mm-hmm.
they've gone to touristy like Africa? What would you say to them about your experience to encourage more of them to go and experience it as you did?
Yeah. So just like how you said, attachment and aversion are key here. I'm attached to this, but we have to ask the questions why. Why? How did we come to be a Christian? And don't say because of my mama or my grandmother. Go further than that. Go further. Go as far as when the first black person arrived in Bermuda, the first African. When slavery started, why did slavery start? Where did they get these people from?
Mm,
Um, During this slavery, why did they choose Africa or the Native American people? Yeah, we have to go back. And
mm,
like I said, it's as a term that I got from Africa, actually from Ghana, and I do it with my tours. It's actually called Sankofa. So, in order to understand, like I said, the present and to be able to move forward into the future, we have to intensely go look into the past. We have to find out how did we, okay, so many of these enslaved Africans and many of the enslaved Native American people who were kidnapped and brought to Bermuda, places like Bermuda to be enslaved, they were not Christians.
mm,
They
mm,
were not. So what were their deities? What did they worship? How did they eventually become Christians here?
mm,
And these are very uncomfortable conversations, and I understand because it changes everything. It changes everything for many people's lives. You know, even with Mary Prince, she says a part in her story, oh, I never rightly knew that I had so much sin until I went to church, you
mm,
know and she was an enslaved black woman, and of course we had a holiday in her honor. So again, we like to attach on to things because it requires work to really decide to even change our minds that have been conditioned, and we have to remember that we have been conditioned to think the ways that we do, and we have to question that. Why have we been so conditioned to think this way? For whose benefit is it? Is it really for my benefit
mm,
or for someone else's benefit?
mm,
Am I gaining wealth from this, or am I still living in poverty from this?
mm.
Yeah.
These are important. This is an important conversation. These are important conversations
Hmm.
that we need to have. Much of what we celebrate, why we celebrate it.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you mentioned it being uncomfortable, Rashida. I think what we live in a space where um, people are fair being uncomfortable. It's a fear for them. They don't want to be uncomfortable. There are people who wouldn't want to go on a tour that you're given because it would upset their comfort level, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
you've got people, and I'm going to pick on the former sector you were in, the IB sector.
Hmm. Hmm.
IB sector who make good money. They don't need to stand up and fight. They don't need to know this, right? They have white friends.
Hmm.
So what are you talking about? That's how they think.
Hmm.
They don't understand how it's going to empower them, like you mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Like, how do you get through to those kind of people? Like, you're a person that was in that space, right?
Yeah.
You were in that space. How do you get through to people who are so comfortable and they feel like, no, I don't have to fight for anything. You could go fight on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I leave people where they are. I really do, Jamal. If you feel as though, because certain people do have to reach certain heights and have to gain a certain understanding. I I I am not a missionary. I know what the missionaries did. I am not trying to be a missionary. But when you are ready to learn more information about the history of Bermuda and the history of the colonization and different things like that, then me and many others, not just myself, but Ajala, Liana, Unstored, they have Kristen in St. George's. There's many of us who are doing a lot of this work right now. And when they're ready, they could come and attend. But I am not trying to convince anybody because I understand it is difficult because, like you said earlier, we have this attachment. But then what also goes along with that is, like you said, aversion. And it's easy to do that and to receive a lot of this information is very difficult, and I get it. But yeah, when they're ready to come they could come, but I am not trying to be a missionary at all.
One of my mentors said to me some years ago, Jamel, you didn't always think the way you did, and you didn't know always
Hmm.
what you did. She said, remember, the same way you came around,
Hmm.
some people will come around on their own time.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
may not come around at all.
Hmm.
But don't be foolish and stress yourself out on trying to get people to come around, because
Absolutely.
that's when it takes a toll on you as the individual.
Hmm.
But it's no different from church. You find a congregation that's willing to be educated in the
Hmm.
space that you're trying to educate, and you move forth with them. But I want to go back to business. And we have a question. Mark Arthur C. Phillips asking, how long
Hey,
did it take
Mark.
you to develop your tour business plan?
Years, years. If Mark, hey Mark. Um, it took altogether probably about both 3 to 5 years. We
Wow.
were just working on the plan. 3 to 5 years because we wanted to make sure that, like I said, we were putting everything in it, all our eggs in this. So 3 to 5 years to come up with the plan, decide what we want to do. It was thinking about which industry we want to go in. It was a few industries that we were thinking of going in, and then we decided tourism. And after even being in Dockyard, we went Dockyard a few times, checked out a few things, and asking, we did our own even research work, asking tourists, about what their thoughts of Bermuda, what they're looking for, how was their experience here. So we really put some work in it. And then we decided to come up with the plan, and we said, okay, this is where we're going to head down. So it took years altogether to even put the business together. By the time we had the buses and everything, it was about a 7 year plan.
Wow, 7 year plan. And
Yeah.
let's talk about this, because
Hmm.
entrepreneurship is not easy. It's not easy. It's risky. With what you added to your business, it's even more risky. How do you go about getting new clients to buy into what it is that you're selling?
To get clients to buy into. Well, basically, we've aligned ourselves with overseas partners. So
Mhm.
most of our partners are overseas that we've been in contact with when it comes to the tours. It's many, and they've aligned themselves with a lot of travel agents. So with our company, we provide mainly group transportation. So we've built relationships as well with cruise ship partners as well. And so we are able to transport over 120 people at one time. And we also have a wheelchair accessible bus. We've aligned ourselves with the hotels. The hotels have groups coming in as well too. And we also align ourselves with sports tourism. Sports tourism is excellent for Bermuda. It's been really great. And we're about to work on that again in the coming weeks. We did it last year. So we really align ourselves and keep our relationships open with
Mhm.
our partners that we work with. Yeah.
All right. You obviously, as mentioned when we opened, you're a mother and a grandmother.
Hmm.
How important is it to build a business and have something like a business? Because Dr. Claude Anderson, he always spoke about how important, for Black wealth it was to
Hmm.
ensure that we had something to pass on. How important is this to you?
It is absolutely important. like I said, it's so interesting about even the cultural tours that I do and research and having to be forced to research a lot of information so that I'm ensuring that I'm giving the correct information. And it always comes down to the one thing about why there was even slavery, why people were treated this way, why certain things happened. And it came down to money. As
Mm.
much as people don't want to talk about it, it really did. And that's what makes this world move, go about. And what we had is we had people who were able to, build wealth and create different things for themselves. But unfortunately, another group of people were subjugated to that. And so it was just figuring out, okay, how can I learn from this? Not only share these stories, but what can I learn from this? And I realized that throughout all of that, and even in these stories, there was a great group that I enjoy the stories very much, an organization called the Friendly Societies. In Bermuda, and they were very instrumental in ensuring that the Black people were provided for in Bermuda, especially after emancipation. And they were a group of Black businessmen and Black businesswomen who came together to ensure that things were provided for folks. And so I admired them. I researched some of them in the friendly societies. And I said, I think I want to be like somebody like that. He's a business person, but at the same time can also help my community to make it better. And so that's what I really learned from the friendly societies moving forward. And these people were not only they were had their businesses even during slavery as well too, but they were able to build wealth, they were able to buy properties, they were able to do these things. But again, that's who we really learned I learned from is them, and I admired them a lot, and I took a page out of that book, not just sharing the history but also learning from them as well too, that it's important for us to have a business. Yeah.
Yeah. And that leads me to generational wealth, right? We often hear this term,
Hmm.
generational wealth. What are your thoughts on generational wealth as an entrepreneur for your family?
It's very important, unfortunately, because many of us, we don't know, we're not sure. And lots of times we do end up sometimes leaving debt and different things like that because we just don't know, we just don't know what we don't know. And I want to do my best not to be in that category, just try to do my best to ensure that I'm able to leave something behind for another generation, but something that's been built. And so, they could continue on with it and hopefully they could leave it to another generation as well too. It's very, very important.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all about generational wealth. I believe that even if you don't have children, you have family. You know, carrying on legacies. It's not something that we've done well as a race. Um,
No, we haven't.
we've had few that have done it. We've had, I mean, if you look at people I know in my spaces, you've had family fights over houses and stuff like that.
Yes, say
Um,
it.
I think a bit different from most people. So systemically, we're taught to. It's almost like the American dream, which I call the American nightmare. Which basically,
Yeah,
American nightmare is all about living in debt, right? That's the whole purpose. It's debt. So
right,
you go to college, right? You put yourself in debt. You buy a
right.
house, you live your life in debt. Like that's what
Mm-hmm,
American
mm-hmm.
dream is. Um, I think differently, and I think you've spoken about this before, Rashida, about the club hands. We shouldn't have to go to them to learn and banking, right? We shouldn't do
Yes.
that. We should be able
Mm-hmm.
to put our money together and purchase buildings and houses. But I'm of the mindset, and I'd like to get your thoughts, right? Sorry,
Sorry about that. It's fine.
no problem.
Okay.
I'm of the mindset that we should actually be investing in businesses and instead of a house. And the reason I feel like we should invest in businesses, a lot of people use the argument that, well, you should always buy a house because at least you'll have somewhere to stay. My thought is
Mm-hmm.
you should always have a business because you'll always have some sort of income. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on the two? Traditionally, again, we're taught to focus on buying a house, not a business.
Right. Yeah, well, and I understand it. It's, because it's property. But what happens is, when you just got the house, you could end up being, when you get even older, you could end up being property rich and cash poor. But
Mm,
the business is very important to have a business, because then, you're creating something that someone needs. And then it's like a constant, it's like a bit of a cash cow where you got a constant flow of cash, a constant cash flow, and then you're also able to, like you said, build wealth from that as well too. So yeah, it's difficult. I understand that generation of, yes, you need to have the houses and
mhm.
stuff like that. But the having the houses, you're not gonna build wealth from having the houses. You build wealth definitely from having your business as well. Very
Yeah, and
much
I
so.
think
Yeah.
Black people, in particular, and my personal opinion on this, I think Black people have been misled when it comes to home owning. And what I mean by
Yes.
that is a house is not an asset unless you have income from it. A house is actually a liability if you don't have any rental income from it. And we
Yeah.
haven't been taught that. We've been taught that, oh, you own a house, you have this asset. Da, da, da. That's just not true. And on a movement personally to try to shape minds and change minds about that. This show actually, folks, is about Rashida's actual journey, but I know we do have some questions that are different. So let's just go. Karen Simmons asking, other than the public schools, CBA,
Karen.
do other schools invite you to teach and engage in tours, as in private schools?
Yeah, yeah. The last one I did was a webinar for actually Somersville Academy, and that was on Mary Prince.
Mm,
Yeah, so that's about it. A few dear have reached out to me. Soltis has reached out, but I'm just been so busy. I haven't really been able to put anything together for them. But yeah, the I've had the private schools reach out. Yeah.
We love busy.
Mhm.
We love busy. Again, this
Yeah.
is about Rashida's journey, folks. But Charles H. Jefferson II says, "What are your thoughts on the preservation of historic buildings in Bermuda? Are they all worthy of being preserved?"
I would actually leave that for the public to decide, because, the public should really decide that. I do have my own thoughts on some of that stuff. I don't think, yeah, we can't afford to preserve everything.
Mhm,
Yeah, no, we can't afford to preserve everything, but we do have to make a story behind it.
mhm,
Maybe sometimes they have a plaque or a monument or maybe a bench, because again, Bermuda itself, in order to move the country forward, we have to, decide on, okay, what do we want to preserve, what we don't want to preserve. But we gotta move this country forward.
mhm,
Bermuda is not a mineral rich country. We don't have oil.
mhm,
We sell services. So we sell tourism, we sell international business, financial services like that. And so the country itself needs to be in the mid of continuously, it does need to be continuously changing. It
mhm,
needs to be with the times. It needs to always, have the newer buildings, different things like that. And we can't get stuck in a time, as much as I share the history. But unfortunately, we don't have oil wells out the back where we're going to turn on the oil and we're going to get billions of dollars like these Saudi Arabia countries. We
mhm.
don't have that. Our industry is different. We sell services. And
Yeah.
so yeah, we really need to learn to take out the page out of, even to a degree, Dubai and
Mhm.
different, and even the one I think is one in Asia that did the gambling. I can't remember
Is it
what's the name of
Singapore?
that one?
Singapore?
Not Singapore,
Okay. Okay.
Macau. If you look up Macau, yeah,
Okay. Cool.
Macau.
Just transitioning back, we're coming to a close, but do you believe, based on your entrepreneurial experience, do you believe racism plays a role in entrepreneurship and business in Bermuda? If so, how?
Yes. Wow. Um, yeah, it's again historically. I mean, historically, the country itself is, well, a dependent territory of Britain.
Mhm,
Bermuda is a colony. Everything is for mostly Britain. We think ourselves, but it's really for the colony. We have a governor here, anything, for instance, say, for instance, just an example, a lot of the taxes, different things we have to pay, where a lot of these laws haven't changed since like they implemented taxes maybe in the 1800s or something like that. We're still getting off of laws that are archaic,
Mhm.
and they were based off of a racist system for any a few to build wealth, while the others were not able to benefit off of that wealth. So many things that we have in places it literally is under a racist system, you
Mhm.
know. But again, it's going to take a lot of work for that to change. But that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's wrap it up. What,
Hmm.
what, when your time is up, when you decide to retire, when it's done, what do you hope that you've given to the world and those who you've touched? What do you hope they benefited from in regards to what they've learned from Rashida Godwin?
I hope that, from people who's even came on the cultural tours, such as Mary Prince and others, Freedom Tour in the City, and even just seeing Titan, is that, to give people, hope, and also say that, they could pretty much do the same as well too. And also when it comes to even the tours, it's just more of just thinking, let's think a bit more critically, you know, let's stop saying, well, my parents did this or somebody did this. And I'm not saying that these folks were wrong, but now we're in an era where we could know more.
Mhm.
So once we could know more, we should learn more, and we should act on what we've learned. We don't continue to go down a certain road when we know better. When we know better, we do better. That's what we should be doing, and hold our own selves accountable. We really have to get into holding ourselves accountable. And when we do these things, we will be a better people, and the community will be better for it as well too.
Indeed. Rashida, we um, have come to the end of our conversation, but I want to say this. Black wealth,
Hmm.
so important for, you know, we speak about Black businesses and entrepreneurship. It doesn't mean that we only want to serve Black people. It doesn't
Correct.
mean that we only
Hmm.
want to work with Black people. What it does mean to me is we don't have the same opportunities,
Hmm.
relationships, right? Backing, right? We're starting further back.
Hmm.
And tonight, I want to really share with the audience that we understand that for us to actually make a difference, for us to grow, that we have to work together. So on this show, I'm proud to share that we're collaborating, and Titan Tours is going to be a proud sponsor of this show going forward. And I want to say thank you to you because
Hmm.
when
You're
I first
welcome.
started doing this show, um, it's tough. It's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
people would say, yeah, I said, but we need funding. And you took the opportunity to say, okay, cool, let's do it.
Hmm.
I appreciate your husband, yourself, Ajala, everyone doing this. When I did the tour and how prepared Winston was and just the whole depth of it. But I like that it was challenging. I like that you put us in our place. Like it it's what's needed. And I
Hmm.
want to challenge anyone who's tuned into this. It's okay to say that you're going to support a business because it's Black. It's okay. It's all right. Because what you need to know is that Black businesses, many of them, do not have the same backing as others. And until, if there ever is an equal footing, if there ever is one in our
Hmm.
lifetime, then at that time we can definitely say, okay, cool, we've done it.
Yes.
We've done it. So
Absolutely.
I just want to honestly appreciate you. This show is going forward is officially sponsored by Titan Tours, Titan Express, and we will be having many more conversations like this. But before you go, we like to play a little short game on this show. And so this one's called One for One.
Mhm.
So what happens is I'll mention one word or phrase, and you have to
Mhm.
describe what it means to you in one word. So just use one word to describe what this word means to you. Ready?
Mhm. Yep, I'm ready.
All right. So here we go. I'll mention the word racism,
Uh, every day.
history,
Every day.
Africa,
Um, mother.
Bermuda.
Colony.
All righty. You did it. All right. I like what you said. Africa, mother. That is all, huh? That's the
Yeah.
motherland. That's the motherland.
Yeah.
It is a colony, folks.
Yeah.
No matter how you try to say we're a territory with this and that, it's a colony.
Mhm.
Bermuda
Yeah.
is not for us. But Rashida, thank you so much for doing this. Really, really, I say this with all my heart. I really love what you guys are doing. Um, if you were available, I would, tell let's have a monthly thing on a daily hour where you can just educate people. But I think the way to do it is to really get people out on your tours. So, folks, if
Yeah.
you have not been out on a tour, please reach out. Just tell people how they can get in touch with you.
You could get in touch with me. Just send an email to info@titantoursbermuda.com. Info@titantoursbermuda.com. And we could work around putting something together for you if you're interested. Yeah.
All right, Rashida,
Hmm.
thank you so much for the conversation, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, great. Thanks. Have a good evening.
You as well. All right, folks. That was Rashida Godwin. And thank you, Karen Simmons. Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be working with Rashida and her team at Titan Tours, folks. If you appreciated that conversation with Rashida Godwin, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Thank you so much. Thanks for engaging to those who did on Jamel Hardtman Unscripted. These conversations are meant to educate, inspire, and motivate us all through real life personal experiences and stories from people in our community. Hopefully, the more we learn about one another, the more we'll love and respect one another, because there's much more to each of us than what many see. Thanks again for tuning in for this conversation of Jamel Hardtman Unscripted. If all goes well, I'll see you again very soon. I'm out. Peace.